Right now, somewhere in the world, someone just hit the snooze button for the third time. Their alarm has been screaming for 20 minutes. Their goals are sitting on a notebook beside the bed, written in neat handwriting from a night when they felt unstoppable. But this morning, the blanket feels heavier than ambition. The pillow feels softer than purpose, and that voice inside their head whispers the same lie it always does. You can start tomorrow. Here is the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to hear at 6 in the morning. Tomorrow never starts. Tomorrow is just today wearing a different mask. The person who says they will begin tomorrow is the same person who said the exact same thing yesterday and the day before that and the week before that. Not because they are lazy, not because they are broken, but because they have been waiting for a feeling that may never arrive on its own. What if you stopped waiting? What if you decided just once to move before your emotions gave you permission? What if discipline was not something you were born with, but something you trained, like a muscle, like a reflex, like the ability to stay calm in a storm? That is exactly what this journey is about. You are about to learn how to train yourself to do hard things every single day, not through punishment, not through guilt, not through screaming at yourself in the mirror, but through small, honest, repeated actions that rewire the way you respond to resistance. You will learn how to begin difficult work when your body wants to stay still. You will learn how to keep going when every part of you wants to quit. You will learn how to trust your own word again. You will learn how to show up on bad days, work without applause, and build a life that earns your own respect. You do not need to become a different person by the time you finish listening. You just need to become someone who does one hard thing today and then does it again tomorrow. Stay with this, because the most important lesson might not be about working harder. It might be about discovering that your feelings have been making decisions that belong to you. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Start your morning. With one brave decision. There is a quiet war that happens every single morning, and most people do not even realize they are fighting it. It does not involve any enemy. It does not require any weapon. The battlefield is the space between your alarm going off and the first meaningful action you take. That space, those fragile minutes between waking and doing, will shape the rest of your hours more than almost anything else you do all day. Think of your morning attention like a glass of clean water. It is full when you wake up. Every distraction you pour into it before doing something meaningful changes the color. A quick scroll through social media adds noise. A few short videos add restlessness. Random messages add someone else's priorities. By the time you reach the task that actually matters, the water is cloudy, and you are wondering why you cannot concentrate. The most powerful shift you can make is deceptively simple. Choose one important task the night before and complete it first thing in the morning, before entertainment, before the phone takes your focus, before comfort wraps itself around your willpower like a warm fog. This is not about punishing yourself with a brutal schedule. This is about protecting your sharpest hours for the work that deserves them. Most people do not struggle with discipline because they are somehow deficient. They struggle because they have accidentally trained their brain to expect ease before effort. Day after day, they wake up and reach for the easy thing first. The phone, the messages, the feed, the clips. Then when the real work appears, their mind has already spent its first energy on things that gave nothing back. That is not a character flaw. That is a pattern, and patterns can be changed. Here's why starting with one hard task works so well. It gives you evidence, not a speech, not a motivational quote. Evidence, real, undeniable proof that you can act without waiting to feel inspired. You told yourself you would study for 30 minutes, and you studied. You told yourself you would exercise before breakfast, and you did. You told yourself you would finish that section of work before opening your messages, and you kept that promise. Each small completion is a deposit in a bank account called self-trust. And self-trust is the currency of discipline. But there is a trap that catches many well-meaning people. They hear advice like this and immediately try to redesign their entire existence overnight. They set the alarm for 4:30. They plan a 2-hour workout, 50 pages of reading, an hour of meditation, a cold shower, a perfect breakfast, and 3 hours of focused work. All before 9 in the morning. It lasts about 4 days. Then they crash, feel like failures, and go back to the snooze button. Do not do that to yourself. Your morning does not need to look like a military training montage. It needs to be honest. 30 minutes of focused effort on something that matters is worth more than a fantasy schedule that collapses by Wednesday. Tonight, before you go to sleep, take a piece of paper and write one task. Just one. Make it specific. Do not write something vague like work harder or be more productive. Those are wishes, not tasks. Write something you can measure. Complete 5 pages of study material. Finish the first section of the report. Exercise for 30 minutes. Organize one area of the apartment. Practice the skill for 40 minutes. You should be able to look at the task and know exactly when it is finished. That clarity removes the morning negotiation. You do not need to stand in front of the mirror debating what to do. You already decided. The morning version of you only needs to follow through. There is a reason this matters so much. The version of you that exists at 10 o'clock at night, writing that task with clear eyes and steady hands, is not the same version that wakes up groggy and confused at 6:30. The night version has vision. The morning version has feelings. If you let the morning version rewrite every decision the night version made, comfort will win almost every time. A prepared plan takes that argument away. You wake up, you see the task, you begin. Your environment plays a bigger role than you might think. Imagine trying to eat healthy with a refrigerator full of cake. You could do it, but you are making the fight harder than it needs to be. The same principle applies to your morning. If your phone sits on the nightstand glowing with notifications, your brain will reach for it the way a hand reaches for something familiar. It is not weakness. It is design. Those apps were built to pull your attention, so give yourself a fighting chance. Put the phone in another room. Charge it in the kitchen. Keep only your alarm clock beside your bed if possible. When you sit down to do your morning task, close every tab that is not related to the work. Turn off the notifications. Tell anyone around you that you need 30 uninterrupted minutes. These are not signs that your willpower is fragile. These are intelligent decisions that protect your focus from unnecessary competition. Once you begin the task, the first few minutes will often feel like pushing a heavy door. Your brain will suddenly remember 17 things that seem more urgent. You will want to check one message. You will feel the pull toward something easier. This is normal. It is so normal, in fact, that you should expect it. Do not panic. Do not conclude that you are failing. Simply notice the urge and return to the task. A useful method is to set a timer. Tell yourself that you only need to stay with the task until the timer rings. You do not need to feel passionate. You do not need to feel motivated. You just need to remain seated and working. That is the entire job. Here is something that will surprise you after a few days of this practice. The discomfort you feel before starting the task is almost always worse than the discomfort of actually doing it. Before you begin, the task exists as this enormous weight in your imagination. Your brain inflates it, makes it seem harder than it really is. But once you are inside the work, something shifts. The whole project disappears, and all that exists is the next paragraph, the next page, the next set, the next 10 minutes. That shift from imagining the task to doing the task is one of the most important things discipline can teach you. Try this for the next 7 mornings. Write your task the night before. Start it before entertainment. Work for at least 30 minutes. When the session is done, write 1 sentence about how you felt before starting and how you felt after finishing. Keep it simple, no long journal entry, just 1 honest sentence. After a week, look at those sentences. You will start to see a pattern. The resistance before starting was always louder than the difficulty during the work. That pattern is your proof that feelings are not always accurate instructions. Now here is a gentle but important point. There will be mornings that do not cooperate. You slept badly. A child needed you in the night. Work sent an emergency message at dawn. Your body aches. On those mornings, do not throw the whole system away. Simply make the task smaller. Your normal session is 40 minutes. Today, it is 15. Your normal workout is intense. Today, it is a walk around the block. Your normal study goal is a full chapter. Today, it is 2 pages. You are not lowering your standards. You are protecting the habit from disappearing. There is a world of difference between doing less and doing nothing. Doing less keeps the pattern alive. Doing nothing gives your brain permission to skip again tomorrow. One last thought before we move forward. Your first hard task of the day is not about suffering. It is about proving something to yourself. When you complete it, even a small version of it, you carry a quiet confidence into the rest of the day. You handled the hard thing first. Now everything else feels a little lighter. That feeling is not motivation. It is something better. It is trust. Trust that when you decide something, your body follows. Trust that your word means something even when the only person listening is you. Tomorrow morning, you have a choice. Comfort first or purpose first. Choose wisely. The rest of the day is listening. Chapter 2. Do what you keep putting off. There is an invisible weight that follows you around when something important remains undone. You might not notice it right away. It does not scream at you. It does not grab you by the shoulders. It just sits there, quietly, like a shadow standing in the corner of every room you enter. You are watching a movie, but part of your brain is thinking about the email you have not sent. You are eating dinner, but somewhere beneath the taste of food, you remember the bill you have not opened. You are laughing with friends, but behind the laughter, a small voice reminds you of the conversation you have been avoiding for weeks. That is the cost of putting things off. And the tricky part is, you rarely pay the full price all at once. It leaks out slowly. A little stress here, a little guilt there, a little less peace every day. Until one morning you wake up and realize that half of your mental energy is being spent on things you have not even started yet. Let us talk about why this happens, because understanding the reason can change how you respond to it. Most people think procrastination is about laziness. It is not. If it were about laziness, you would be lying on the couch doing absolutely nothing. But that is not what happens, is it? You are busy. You are doing things. You are cleaning the kitchen, reorganizing your bookshelf, watching tutorials, making lists, replying to messages that could have waited. You are active, just not on the thing that actually matters. Procrastination is almost never about the task itself. It is about the feeling the task creates before you begin. That feeling could be uncertainty. You do not know where to start, so the whole thing feels overwhelming. It could be fear. What if you try and it is not good enough? What if someone judges the result? It could be boredom. The task is necessary but dull, and your brain would rather chase something more stimulating. It could be frustration. You have tried before, it did not work, and now starting again feels like walking into a wall you have already hit. Here is the shift that changes everything. Stop asking yourself whether you feel like doing the task. That question is a trap. It hands the decision over to whatever emotion happens to be standing at the front of the line. Instead, ask a different question. What needs to move forward today, and what is the smallest step that would make that happen? The smallest step. That is the key. Do not look at the entire mountain. Look at the next rock you need to grab. You do not need to fix your entire financial situation right now. You need to open the bank statement and look at the numbers. You do not need to write the whole paper. You need to write the first paragraph. You do not need to organize your entire apartment. You need to clear one drawer. You do not need to become fluent in a new language. You need to study 15 words and use them in a sentence. A large task creates fog. A small, clear action creates a doorway. Walk through the doorway first. You can figure out the hallway once you're inside. There is a beautiful thing that happens when you take that first small step. Reality replaces imagination. Before you begin, your mind builds the task into something enormous. It adds weight that does not actually exist. You imagine the difficulty. You imagine the time. You imagine the discomfort. But the moment you start, something shifts. The imaginary version dissolves, and you are left with the real version. And the real version is almost always more manageable than the story you told yourself. Think about a time you finally made that phone call you had been avoiding. How long did the actual conversation take? 5 minutes? 7? And how many hours did you spend dreading it beforehand? That gap between the dread and the reality is where procrastination lives. It feeds on the space between deciding and doing. The wider that gap, the stronger the resistance becomes. Shrink the gap. Decide, then move. Give yourself 5 minutes to begin, not 5 minutes to finish. Just 5 minutes to step inside the task. Open the document. Read the first page. Put the first item in its place. Write the first line. Dial the number. That is all you need to do. Enter the room. Once you are inside, you will often find that you want to stay a little longer. Let me tell you something that might sound strange, but is worth considering. You do not actually procrastinate on everything. Nobody does. You do not procrastinate on eating when you are hungry. You do not put off watching your favorite show. You do not delay texting someone you are excited to talk to. Your brain has no trouble starting things that offer immediate comfort or pleasure. It only resists the things where the reward is delayed and the discomfort is up front. Understanding this is powerful because it means the problem is not your ability to act. The problem is the order of discomfort and reward. Discipline is, in many ways, the skill of tolerating the discomfort first so you can receive the reward later. One habit that quietly destroys progress is using preparation as a disguise for avoidance. You have probably done this. You tell yourself that before you can start exercising, you need the right shoes, the right playlist, the right routine, the right gym. Before you can start writing, you need the perfect notebook, the perfect software, the perfect desk setup. Before you can start learning, you need to find the perfect course, read the perfect reviews, compare every option. At some point, preparation stops helping and starts hiding. Use a simple test. Ask yourself honestly, am I preparing to do the work, or am I preparing to feel ready to do the work? Those are two very different things. Feeling ready is a luxury. Starting is a decision. You can have one without the other. Another helpful shift is to stop keeping your tasks only in your head. A responsibility that lives in your thoughts competes with every other thought for attention. It floats around without structure, popping up at random moments, making you feel vaguely anxious without giving you a clear next step. Write it down. Give it a time. Put it in your calendar the way you would put a meeting with someone important. Because that is exactly what it is. It is a meeting with a version of your future that needs your attention today. When you assign a time to an avoided task, something changes. It stops being this shapeless cloud of stress and becomes a specific commitment. You do not need to think about it every hour. You know when it will be handled. That alone can reduce the background noise that procrastination creates. There is also enormous value in being honest about why you are avoiding something. Most people write surface-level excuses. I did not have time. I was too tired. I forgot. Those might be partially true, but they rarely tell the full story. Go deeper. What is the real reason you have not made that appointment? What is the real reason the application is still unfinished? What is the real reason you have not started that project? Maybe you are afraid of failing. Maybe you are unsure of your ability. Maybe you are worried about what someone will think. Maybe the task reminds you of a past experience that did not end well. When you name the real reason, it loses some of its power. Fear works best in the dark. Bring it into the light. Look at it directly, and it becomes something you can work with instead of something that controls you from behind the curtain. Here is a practice worth trying today. Think of one task you have been pushing aside for at least several days. Write it down. Beneath it, write the honest reason you have been avoiding it. Not the excuse, the reason. Then write the smallest action that would move it forward. Give yourself 10 focused minutes. Put your phone face down. Set a timer. Do nothing except that one small action until the timer ends. When the 10 minutes are over, look at what happened. Maybe the task is done. Maybe you discovered it was not as complicated as you feared. Maybe you realized it needs more work, but now you have information instead of anxiety. Maybe the problem shrank simply because you looked at it directly. Whatever the result, you replaced avoidance with action. And that trade is always worth making. Do not wait for the pressure of a deadline to push you into motion. That pattern works in the short term, but it keeps your life running on emergency fuel. You only study the night before the exam. You only pay the bill when the warning arrives. You only clean when guests are coming. You only deal with the problem when it becomes a crisis. That is not discipline, that is survival. And surviving every week is exhausting. A stronger approach is to create your own earlier timeline. If something is due on Friday, set a personal deadline for Wednesday. If a conversation needs to happen this month, have it this week. If a project needs to be submitted next quarter, begin working on it this month. Early action does not just reduce stress. It gives you room to think, to adjust, to improve. The quality of work done under calm conditions is almost always better than work done under panic. Pay attention to the language you use when you talk to yourself about avoided tasks. The words matter more than you think. I should probably do that sometime carries no weight. It drifts away the moment something more appealing appears. I will spend 20 minutes on this at 2 o'clock today is a different sentence. Entirely. It has a time, it has a duration, it has clarity. Your brain can hold on to it because it sounds like a real decision, not a vague suggestion. One more thing. Do not expect relief to arrive before you act. That is the old pattern talking. The old pattern says, feel better first, then do the work. The new pattern says, do the work, then feel the relief. Most of the time, the relief you have been waiting for is on the other side of the action you have been avoiding. Your shoulders relax after you send the message. Your mind quiets down after you open the bill. Your confidence returns after you complete the first page. The feeling follows the action, not the other way around. Today, choose one thing you have been putting off. Reduce it to its smallest useful step. Set a time. Begin before the resistance finishes its speech. Let the result teach you what comes next. You are not someone who avoids hard things. You are someone who is learning to walk toward them, and every step forward, no matter how small, makes the next one easier to take. Chapter 3. Stop choosing easy when the work gets hard. There is a moment that happens almost every day, and it is so quiet that most people miss it entirely. It does not announce itself. There is no alarm, no warning, no dramatic soundtrack. It arrives softly, dressed as a perfectly reasonable thought. And it sounds something like this: I will just do the easier thing for now. That sentence seems harmless, innocent even. But if you could zoom out and watch your life from above, you would see that sentence standing at the crossroads of almost every important decision you have ever made. To the left, the path of effort, a little steep, a little uncomfortable, but leading somewhere real. To the right, the path of comfort, flat, familiar, and leading in a slow circle back to where you already are. One easy choice does not ruin your life. Let us be honest about that. Choosing the couch over the workout one time will not destroy your health. Skipping one study session will not end your career. Watching one more episode instead of working on your project will not erase your potential. But here is what nobody tells you. Easy choices are quiet architects. They do not demolish your life in a single swing. They redesign it slowly, one small substitution at a time, until one day you look around and wonder how you ended up so far from where you wanted to be. The real danger of choosing easy is not the single moment. It is the pattern that forms beneath it. Every time you pick comfort over effort when effort was the thing your life actually needed, you train a reflex. Your brain takes notes. It learns that when difficulty appears, The correct response is to step sideways into something softer. After enough repetitions, that reflex becomes automatic. You do not even feel the decision anymore. You simply drift toward the easier option, the way water drifts downhill. Not because you chose to, but because the channel has already been carved. So let us talk about how to recognize that moment and what to do when it arrives. The first thing to understand is that hard work almost always feels harder before you sit down to do it than it does once you're in the middle of it. Your brain is remarkably talented at exaggerating effort that has not started yet. It projects the difficulty, inflates the discomfort, and presents you with a neat little alternative that requires almost nothing. Check your phone, watch something short, organize your desk, browse for a while. The alternative feels like a small detour, but it is actually a replacement. You did not pause the hard work. You traded it for something that asked less of you. Here is a question worth carrying with you throughout the day. A small, sharp question you can pull out whenever you feel yourself leaning toward the easier option. Is this choice moving my life forward, or is it helping me avoid something that would? That question does not demand perfection. It does not ask you to choose suffering for the sake of suffering. It simply asks you to be honest for 3 seconds. And 3 seconds of honesty can change the direction of an entire afternoon. Let me be clear about something. Choosing easy is not always wrong. There is a difference between smart simplicity and avoidance. Taking a shorter route to save time so you can spend that time on something meaningful is intelligent. Using a simpler tool that gets the job done faster is efficient. Resting when your body genuinely needs recovery is responsible. Those are wise decisions, and discipline does not ask you to reject them. Discipline asks you to notice when easy has stopped being a smart choice and started being a hiding place. Consider exercise. Walking for 20 minutes on a day when your body is sore and your schedule is packed might be the wise choice. Sitting on the couch for 20 minutes because the idea of movement feels inconvenient is a different decision entirely. The action might look similar from the outside, but the reason behind it tells the whole story. Consider work. Choosing a streamlined method to finish a task faster is clever. Avoiding the task altogether because it requires concentration is not efficiency. It is escape wearing a productive-looking outfit. The difference is always in the why. Why are you choosing the easier path? If the answer is because it genuinely serves your goal, wonderful. If the answer is because the harder path makes you uncomfortable and you would rather not deal with that feeling right now, then you are standing at exactly the crossroads where discipline matters most. One of the most effective ways to build this muscle is through small, deliberate challenges. You do not need to turn your entire life into an obstacle course. You just need to find one moment each day where you would normally drift toward easy and choose differently. Take the stairs when the elevator is right there. Finish the last 10 minutes of your workout when your body is begging you to stop early. Read the chapter instead of watching the summary. Clean the kitchen before you sit down for the evening. Complete the hard section of your work before checking your messages. These are not dramatic acts of heroism. Nobody will write a story about you taking the stairs. But that is precisely the point. You are not performing discipline for an audience. You are practicing it for yourself. Every time you choose the harder action in a small moment, you send a quiet message to your own mind. I can feel resistance and still move forward. That message, repeated often enough, becomes a belief. And that belief becomes the foundation of every larger decision you will ever make. Here's something else worth knowing. Difficult work has a hidden gift that easy work cannot offer. It shows you where you need to grow. Think about it this way. If you only ever do things you are already comfortable with, you learn nothing new about yourself. Your strengths stay untested. Your weaknesses stay hidden. You feel safe, but the safety is an illusion because the world does not stay comfortable forever. Eventually, something will demand more than your comfort zone has prepared you for. Difficult work, on the other hand, is like a mirror that shows you the truth. A hard assignment reveals the gaps in your understanding. A challenging workout shows you which muscles are weak. A tough conversation reveals where your communication needs attention. A demanding project exposes the skills you still need to build. None of that feels pleasant in the moment, but every piece of that information is a gift, because once you see the gap, you can close it. Avoidance keeps the gap hidden. Effort brings it into the light. When you struggle with something and feel embarrassed or frustrated, change the question you ask yourself. Instead of asking, "Why am I so bad at this?" ask, "What specific part do I need to work on?" The first question leads to shame. The second leads to a plan. And a plan, even an imperfect one, is always more useful than shame. There is a common trap that catches ambitious people, and it is worth mentioning here. Some people hear the message, "Choose hard over easy," and interpret it as make everything as difficult as possible. They turn their entire life into a punishment. They wake up at 4 in the morning. They eliminate every comfort. They push through exhaustion. They refuse to rest. They treat enjoyment like a weakness. And then, predictably, they burn out. Discipline is not about choosing pain for the sake of pain. It is about choosing the right level of effort for the result that matters. Work hard on things that actually move your life forward. Make necessary tasks simpler when simplicity improves the result. Rest when recovery is genuinely needed. Say no to pointless difficulty that exists only to make you feel tough. The standard is not always choose harder. The standard is choose what is necessary even when it is hard. Here is a practice you can begin today. Before you go to bed tonight, write down 3 small actions you normally avoid because they require effort. Keep them ordinary. Make the phone call. Walk for 20 minutes. Study for half an hour. Organize the paperwork. Prepare tomorrow's materials. Then tomorrow, choose one of the 3 and complete it before giving yourself a comfortable reward. Just one. You are not trying to fill your entire day with struggle. You are building a habit of responding to effort without running from it. Pay attention to what happens after you complete that one thing. You might feel tired. You might feel proud. You might feel neutral. The emotional result matters less than the fact itself. You chose the harder path and you survived. That evidence stays with you. It becomes a small stone in the foundation of a new pattern. And over time, stone by stone, the foundation becomes strong enough to hold much larger decisions. There will be afternoons when your energy is low and the easy option looks incredibly appealing. There will be evenings when an unfinished responsibility is staring at you and every part of you wants to pretend it does not exist. Those moments are not your enemy. They are your training ground. They are the exact moments where the version of you that you want to become gets built, one honest choice at a time. Stop asking whether the hard choice feels comfortable. Start asking whether avoiding it will make tomorrow better or worse. Start asking what the person you are trying to become would do right now. Then act on the answer, even if your feelings protest. You do not need to reject every comfort in your life. Comfort has a place. Rest has a place. Enjoyment has a place. But none of them should be standing at the front of the line when something important is waiting behind them. Let effort go first. Let the reward follow. That order, repeated daily, is one of the simplest and most powerful changes you will ever make. Choose effort when effort is necessary. Choose patience when results take time. Choose practice when skill is missing. Choose responsibility when avoidance would create a bigger problem. Each time you make that choice with open eyes, you become a little less dependent on your mood and a little more capable of directing your own life. That is how discipline stops being a concept and starts becoming something you actually live. Chapter 4. Keep going. When you want to quit. There is a moment in every worthwhile pursuit where your brain sends you a very convincing message. It says, clearly and calmly, this is enough. You should stop now. And the strange thing is, that message almost never arrives at the beginning. It does not show up when the work is fresh and your energy is high. It waits. It watches. And then, right when you reach the part of the task that would actually change something, right when persistence would start to pay off, it taps you on the shoulder and says, you have done enough. Let us go do something easier. That moment is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you have arrived at the exact place where growth lives. Think of it like heating water on a stove. At 40 degrees, nothing visible happens. At 60 degrees, still nothing. At 80 degrees, you might see a few small bubbles, but the water is still calm. It is only at 100 degrees that everything changes. The water transforms. It boils. But imagine turning off the heat at 95 degrees because you got tired of waiting. You were 5 degrees away from transformation. And you walked away because the process felt too slow, too boring, too uncomfortable. That is what quitting often looks like in real life. You do not quit at the beginning when you have nothing invested. You quit near the middle when the work has stopped being exciting, but the result has not yet arrived. You quit in the space between effort and evidence. And that space, as uncomfortable as it is where discipline matters most. Let us be honest about something. The urge to quit is not a character flaw. It is a human experience. Everyone who has ever pursued anything meaningful has felt it. The athlete in the last quarter mile, the student in the final chapters before the exam, the entrepreneur in the months before the business starts working, the person saving money who watches their friends spend freely. The feeling is universal. What separates those who eventually succeed from those who do not is rarely talent or luck. It is the ability to sit with the discomfort of wanting to stop and choosing to take one more step anyway. But here is something important that often gets lost in motivational messages. Not every urge to quit is the same. There is a real difference between genuine exhaustion and ordinary resistance. And learning to tell them apart is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Genuine exhaustion is your body or mind telling you that the tank is truly empty. You have not slept properly. You have not eaten. You are physically unwell. Your concentration has deteriorated so badly that continuing would create more problems than it solves. That is not weakness. That is information. And the disciplined response is to rest, recover, and return. Ordinary resistance is different. It feels like exhaustion, but it is not. It is the discomfort that arrives when a task becomes boring or difficult or repetitive. Your body is fine. Your mind is capable. But the work has lost its novelty, and your brain is scanning the room for something more stimulating. That is not a reason to stop. That is a reason to stay. The next time you feel the pull to quit, try something before you make the decision. Give yourself 10 more minutes, not 10 minutes of debating whether to continue, 10 minutes of actual work. Focus only on the next small action in front of you. Do not calculate how much is left. Do not measure the total distance. Just stay with the task for 10 more minutes and see what happens. You will discover something interesting. The urge to quit often behaves like a wave. It rises, peaks, and then, if you do not react to it, it passes. You were ready to close the book at page 40, but by page 43, your attention returned. You wanted to stop the workout at minute 20, but by minute 25, your rhythm came back. You felt like abandoning the project at the halfway point, but after a glass of water and 5 more minutes of work, the next step became clear. This does not mean the urge was fake. It was real, but it was temporary, and temporary feelings do not deserve permanent decisions. One of the most underappreciated skills in discipline is learning how to navigate the middle of a task. Starting something is often exciting. You have energy, intention, clarity. Finishing something can be motivating too because the end is in sight and completion. Pulls you forward, but the middle is different. The middle is where the excitement has evaporated and the finish line is still too far away to feel real. The middle is the long hallway with no windows. You cannot see where you came from, and you cannot yet see where you are going. Most people do not fail because they cannot start. They fail because they cannot survive the middle. They begin books and leave them half-read. They start projects and abandon them at 60%. They commit to routines and drift away after the second week. The middle is where dreams go quiet and habits go to sleep. But the middle is also where the real work happens. The work that nobody sees. The work that builds the foundation for every result that eventually becomes visible. So, how do you get through it? One method is to break the long stretch into smaller, visible segments. Instead of staring at 20 pages left to study, focus on 2. Instead of thinking about the full distance of a run, focus on reaching the next corner. Instead of worrying about finishing the entire project, focus on completing one section. You do not need to trick yourself into thinking the work is small. You just need to redirect your attention from the total to the immediate. The task does not get lighter, but your experience of it changes. Another powerful method is to reconnect with the reason you started. When you are deep in the middle, reasons can fade. You forget why this mattered. The original spark feels distant. Write your reason down before you begin long projects. Keep it somewhere you can see it. Not a grand declaration, just a simple, honest sentence. I am studying because I want better career options. I am exercising because I want to feel stronger and healthier. I am saving because I want fewer financial worries. I am learning this skill because it opens doors I want to walk through. When the middle tries to swallow your motivation, read that sentence It will not make the work easy, but it will remind you why easy is not the point. There is also great power in learning to finish small things completely. This sounds minor, but it reshapes how your brain relates to effort. When you leave things half done repeatedly, your mind begins to associate starting with not finishing. It expects the pattern. It assumes that enthusiasm will fade and the task will be abandoned. You can reverse this by deliberately completing small tasks from start to finish. Read the article to the end. Finish the last set of the exercise. Wash all the dishes, not just most of them. Complete the full practice session. Each finished task teaches your brain that starting leads to completing. That expectation becomes a powerful internal force. Something else happens when you push through the urge to quit. You gain information that quitting cannot provide. Suppose you are learning something new. The first attempt is rough. You feel clumsy, frustrated, unsure. If you stop at that point, you carry only the memory of difficulty. But if you continue, you begin to see which specific part needs improvement. Maybe your method was slightly off. Maybe you needed to slow down. Maybe a different approach would work better. You cannot discover any of this from the sidelines. You can only discover it by staying in the game long enough for the picture to become clearer. Mistakes deserve special attention here. Many people do not quit because the work is physically hard. They quit because they made an error and felt embarrassed. They tried and it did not go well, and instead of studying what went wrong, they treated the mistake as proof that they should not continue. But a mistake is not a verdict. It is a lesson wearing uncomfortable clothes. The question after a mistake is never, should I stop? The question is, what can I learn from this, and what will I do differently next time? That question turns a dead end into a doorway. Be careful about making quitting decisions at your lowest emotional point. When frustration is at its peak, everything looks hopeless. The project seems pointless. The effort seems wasted. The goal seems unreachable. But emotions are not photographs. They do not capture reality with precision. They are more like weather. They change. What feels unbearable at 3 p.m. can look entirely different after a walk, a glass of water, a good night of sleep. Give yourself permission to pause without giving yourself permission to quit. Step away for 5 minutes. Breathe. Move your body. Let the emotional storm pass. Then look at the situation again with calmer eyes. You should also prepare for predictable moments of weakness. If you know your focus drops after 40 minutes, plan a short break before that point. If you know your energy dips in the late afternoon, schedule lighter tasks for that window. If you know that certain distractions always pull you away, remove them before you begin. Discipline gets easier when your environment cooperates with your intentions instead of fighting against them. Here is one more thought that might help on the days when quitting feels almost logical. Think about the version of you that exists on the other side of this effort. Not a fantasy version, not a superhero, just the version of you that kept going today when stopping felt easier. That version is a little more confident, a little more capable, a little more trusting of their own decisions. That version did not need the work to feel exciting. They did not need the path to be smooth. They just needed a reason that mattered and the willingness to stay with it for a little longer. You are building that version right now, not through dramatic transformations, through ordinary moments where you felt the pull to quit and chose to remain. Do not misunderstand the message here. There are times when quitting is the right decision, a goal that no longer aligns with your values, a path that has proven genuinely harmful, a commitment that was made with incomplete information. Changing direction in those cases is not failure, it is wisdom. But if the goal still matters, if the destination still calls to you, and the only reason you want to stop is because the road became uncomfortable, then the discomfort is not a stop sign. It is a checkpoint. It is asking you whether you meant what you said when you started. And your answer is not found in words. It is found in whether you take the next step. Tonight, if there is something you have been thinking about abandoning, ask yourself one honest question. Am I quitting because this no longer matters, or am I quitting because it has become hard? If the answer is the second one, stay, not forever, just for 10 more minutes, then 10 more after that. Let the work teach you what quitting never could. The water is at 95 degrees. Do not turn off the heat. Chapter 5. Make yourself work without feeling ready. There is a lie so polite, so reasonable, so well-dressed that you have probably invited it into your life hundreds of times without ever recognizing it as a lie. It sounds like this: I will start when I am ready. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. It sounds like the kind of thing a thoughtful person would say before beginning something important. But if you look closely at the history of that sentence in your life, you will notice something painful. Most of the things you said you would start when you were ready are still waiting. The book you are going to write when inspiration struck. The business you are going to launch when the timing was right. The skill you were going to learn when you had more free time. The conversation you were going to have when you felt confident enough. The workout routine you were going to begin when you were in better shape. Readiness, for most people, is not a preparation stage. It is a permanent waiting room. And the hardest part is that it feels productive to sit there. You are not doing nothing. You are researching. You are planning. You are thinking about it. You are getting organized. You are reading one more article, watching one more tutorial, buying one more tool, waiting for one more sign that the universe is telling you to begin. Meanwhile, the work sits untouched, and the gap between intention and action grows wider with every comfortable day that passes. Let me offer you a different way to think about this. Readiness is not a feeling that arrives before action. It is a feeling that grows from action. You do not feel ready, then start. You start, then begin to feel ready. Confidence does not create experience. Experience creates confidence. Clarity does not produce movement. Movement produces clarity. You will not feel prepared for the conversation until you have had a few honest conversations. You will not feel ready for the workout until your body has been through a few sessions. You will not feel confident in the new skill until your hands have practiced it enough times to remember. The order is the opposite of what most people believe. They think the sequence is feel ready, then act. The real sequence is act, then feel ready. And the space between those two models is where years of potential quietly disappear. So what does it actually take to begin something when your emotions have not given you the green light? It takes a separation between two things that are easy to confuse: preparation and readiness. Preparation is practical. It means having the materials, the information, the basic conditions needed to start. Do you have the book? Do you have the equipment? Do you have a block of time? Do you know the first step? Those are preparation questions, and they deserve real answers. If something essential is genuinely missing, go get it. Readiness is emotional. It is the warm, confident feeling that says, yes, now is the moment. And while that feeling is wonderful when it appears, it is not required. You can study without feeling eager. You can exercise without feeling energized. You can work without feeling inspired. You can have the difficult conversation without feeling brave. You can begin the project without feeling certain. This might sound uncomfortable, and that is because it is. But uncomfortable truths are often the most useful ones. Here is a method that works remarkably well for people who struggle with this. It is called the starting action. Instead of telling yourself to complete the entire task, identify the single physical movement that begins it. Not the whole workout, just putting on the shoes, not the whole study session, just opening the book to the right page, not the whole project, just opening the document and reading the last paragraph you wrote, not the whole phone call, just picking up the phone and dialing. The starting action works because it asks almost nothing of your emotions. You do not need to feel motivated to put on your shoes. You do not need to feel inspired to open a book. You do not need confidence to click on a file. These are tiny, physical, almost thoughtless movements, but they carry enormous power because they collapse the distance between thinking and doing. Once the shoes are on, walking becomes natural. Once the book is open, reading becomes obvious. Once the document is in front of you, writing becomes the next logical step. You tricked nobody. You simply removed the enormous emotional barrier of beginning and replaced it with a movement so small that resistance could not find anything to grip onto. There is something else worth understanding here. The longer you wait to start, the harder starting becomes. This is not just a feeling. It is a psychological reality. Every minute you spend between deciding to do something and actually doing it is a minute your mind can use to generate objections. What if it does not work? What if I am not good enough? What if it takes too long? What if I fail? The objections multiply with time. They feed on the gap between intention and action. Shrink the gap and you starve the objections. Try this as a daily exercise. Choose one important task and start it within 10 minutes of the planned time. Not after you check your messages, not after you adjust your workspace, not after you find the perfect background music. Within 10 minutes. The purpose is not to rush. It is to practice reducing the space where hesitation grows. You are training a reflex. Decide, then move. Decide, then move. Over and over, until the reflex becomes stronger than the resistance. Now here is a truth that many people need to hear, but few are willing to accept. Perfectionism is one of the most effective disguises that avoidance has ever worn. It looks like high standards. It sounds like quality control. It presents itself as the voice of excellence. But behind the mask, perfectionism often says the same thing as fear. Do not start until you are sure you will not fail. A person trapped in perfectionism can spend 3 hours refining the first paragraph while the rest of the paper remains unwritten. They can spend weeks designing the perfect morning routine while their actual mornings remain chaotic. They can research endlessly, compare every option, and analyze every possible outcome while the opportunity quietly closes its door and walks away. Perfectionism tells you that starting with a rough version is beneath you. Discipline tells you that a rough version is the only way anything real has ever been built. Every great book began as a messy first draft. Every strong athlete began with clumsy, awkward movements. every successful business began with an imperfect plan. The masterpiece comes later, after revision, after practice, after experience. But it cannot come at all if the first version never exists. Use what I call the first version rule. The first attempt does not need to be brilliant. It needs to exist. Write the rough draft. Do the basic workout. Create the simple presentation. Build the first prototype. Cook the imperfect meal. Have the stumbling conversation. You can revise, refine, and improve endlessly after the first version exists. But you cannot improve something that only lives inside your imagination. There is a related habit that helps enormously. Separate your work time from your evaluation time. During the work session, produce. During the review session, judge and improve. When you mix the two, you create a constant loop of start, criticize, hesitate, start again, criticize, hesitate. That loop drains energy without creating progress. If you are writing, write. Save the editing for later. If you are practicing, practice. Save the analysis for afterward. If you are building, build. Save the refinement for the next session. Let creation and judgment live in separate rooms. Your physical environment can support this shift more than you might expect. Prepare your materials the night before. Put the study book on the desk. Lay out the exercise clothes beside the bed. Open the document on your computer before you shut it down. Keep the tools for tomorrow's task within arm's reach. Each small preparation removes one friction point between waking up and beginning. You do not need to bulldoze through obstacles if you quietly remove them the night before. There will be days when motivation is nowhere to be found, not low, not fading, simply absent. On those days, you need a minimum standard. This is the smallest amount of work that keeps the habit breathing. 10 minutes of study instead of an hour. A short walk instead of a full workout. One paragraph instead of 5 pages. One phone call instead of a full afternoon of outreach. The minimum standard exists to protect you from the most dangerous pattern of all, which is the all-or-nothing trap. Some people believe that a session only counts if they perform at their absolute best. If they cannot give 100%, they give 0. That belief sounds like discipline, but it is actually its opposite. A poor session is still a session. A short walk is still movement. A rough paragraph is still progress. You are learning that difficult days do not erase your commitment. They test it, and passing that test, even with the minimum effort, is still passing. Here is something that may encourage you. Your feelings often change once you begin. Before starting, you might feel heavy, foggy, resistant, uninterested. But 10 minutes into the work, something subtle shifts. Your attention sharpens. Your energy adjusts. The task that seemed unbearable starts to feel manageable. This does not happen every single time, but it happens often enough to teach you a lesson your emotions do not want you to learn. Your morning mood is not a reliable forecast for your entire day. Feeling tired at 8 does not mean you cannot be productive by 9. Feeling nervous before a meeting does not mean the meeting will go badly. Feeling unmotivated before a study session does not mean the session will be worthless. Your feelings are weather. They shift, they pass, they return in different forms. But your decisions can remain steady regardless of the forecast. That is what discipline really means. Not that you feel strong every day, but that you act on your commitments even when strength is not the feeling at the front of the line. Today, choose something important that you have been waiting to feel ready for. Check that the basic preparation is done. Set a specific time. Remove one distraction. Identify the starting action, the smallest physical movement that begins the work. Then do it. Do not judge your performance while you are beginning. Do not evaluate your feelings. Just start. Move your hands. Open the page. Take the step. Tomorrow, do it again. And the day after that. Over time, you will discover something that changes the way you approach almost everything. Some of your best work, some of your proudest moments, some of your most meaningful progress will have started on mornings when you felt absolutely nothing. No fire, no inspiration, no readiness, just a decision and a first step. That is enough. That has always been enough. Chapter 6. Finish important work before taking breaks. There is a pattern that quietly sabotages more days than most people realize. It looks harmless. It even feels justified. It goes something like this. You wake up, you reach for your phone, you scroll for a few minutes, then a few more. You watch something short, then something else. You check your messages. You reply to a couple. You browse something interesting. You look at the time, and an hour has passed. Now the important work is still waiting, but your freshest energy has already been given away to things that asked nothing of you and gave nothing back. The morning did not fail because you lacked ability. It failed because rest came before the work instead of after it. Let me say something that might feel counterintuitive at first. Rest is not your enemy. Breaks are not the problem. Entertainment is not something you need to eliminate from your life. These things have a real and important place in a healthy, disciplined routine. The problem is not that they exist. The problem is where they sit in the order of your day. When comfort comes before effort, effort becomes almost impossible to reach. But when effort comes before comfort, comfort becomes a genuine reward, and it feels incomparably better. Think about the difference between two versions of the same evening. In the first version, you come home, collapse on the couch, watch 3 hours of content, and then remember the work you were supposed to finish. Now it is late. You are tired. The task feels enormous. You either rush through it with poor attention or push it to tomorrow. You go to bed feeling vaguely guilty, and the cycle starts again. In the second version, you come home, sit down, and spend 45 focused minutes completing the most important task. Then you close the laptop, stretch your body, and settle onto the same couch with the same show. But something is different. The guilt is gone. The background noise in your brain has quieted. You are not pretending to relax while mentally carrying an unfinished responsibility. You are actually resting, fully, because the thing that needed doing has been done. Same couch, same show, completely different experience. The only thing that changed was the order. This is one of the simplest shifts you can make in your daily routine, and it is also one of the most powerful. Decide what meaningful work must be completed before your first real break. Not everything on your list. Not some impossible marathon of productivity. Just the one thing that, if completed, would make the rest of the day feel lighter. But here is the part most people skip. Define what completion looks like before you begin. This matters more than you might think. Work on my project is not a finish line. It is a fog. You can wander inside it for an hour, checking messages between paragraphs, rearranging files, staring at the screen, and walk away feeling like you worked without having actually completed anything meaningful. Then you take your break believing you earned it, but deep down, you know the real task is still sitting there untouched. Instead, set a clear checkpoint. Finish the introduction and the first section. Complete 20 practice problems. Write 1,000 words of the draft. Exercise for 30 minutes. Organize the documents for the meeting. A clear checkpoint turns your work into something measurable. You know exactly when you have crossed the line. And when you cross it, the break that follows feels earned, not stolen. There is a psychological reason this approach works so well, and it has to do with how your brain learns to associate effort and reward. Every time entertainment consistently comes before work, your brain strengthens a connection. It learns that comfort is the default state and effort is the interruption. That makes starting difficult work feel like pulling yourself away from something natural. But when you reverse the order, when effort consistently comes before entertainment, your brain starts building a different connection. It learns that work comes first and reward follows. Over time, that sequence becomes familiar, then normal, then automatic. You stop debating whether to start because the pattern has already decided for you. This same principle shows up in almost every area of life where discipline produces results. Think about saving money. You spend less now, so you have more options later. The comfort of spending is delayed, so the reward of security can grow. Think about education. You study now, often for months or years, before the qualification arrives. Think about physical health. You train now, and your body becomes stronger weeks and months down the road. The pattern is always the same: effort first, reward later, and the people who internalize that pattern are the ones who consistently build lives they can be proud of. Now let us talk about the break itself, because not all breaks are created equal. There is a difference between a break that restores your attention and a break that hijacks it. 10 minutes of walking outside, stretching, drinking water, or simply sitting in silence can genuinely recharge your ability to focus. But 20 minutes of rapid-fire short videos, constant notification checking, and high-stimulation scrolling can leave you more scattered than before. Here's why. Your brain adjusts to the speed of the content it consumes. Fast content trains your brain to expect fast rewards. When you return to slower, deeper work after a burst of high-speed entertainment, the contrast feels almost painful. The page seems boring. The task seems endless. Your attention keeps reaching for the quick dopamine it was just receiving. You did not rest. You overstimulated yourself. And now the real work has to compete with a brain that was just running at a completely different speed. A better break is a quieter break. Walk around the room. Step outside for a few minutes if you can. Prepare something simple to drink. Sit somewhere different from where you work. Look at something in the distance to rest your eyes. Speak briefly with someone. Let your mind slow down instead of speeding up. The goal of a break is not to fill the space with more stimulation. It is to create enough mental silence that your focus can return when you need it. There is also real value in choosing a smart stopping point when you pause your work. Imagine studying a complex topic and stopping right in the middle of an explanation. When you return, you have to reread the previous section, rebuild your understanding, and find the thread you dropped. That restart costs time and energy. A smarter approach is to stop at a natural pause. Finish the section. Complete the set. Reach the planned checkpoint. Save your work, then step away. When you return, the path forward is already visible. Here's a small habit that makes a surprisingly big difference. Before you take a longer break, write a short note to yourself. Just 1 or 2 sentences. What did you complete, and what is the next step when you return? For example, finished the outline, next step is to write the first paragraph. Or, completed 20 problems, next step is to review the ones I got wrong. This tiny act removes the friction of restarting. Instead of spending 10 minutes figuring out where you were, you simply read the note and begin. For projects that span several days, this habit becomes invaluable. Monday's note saves Tuesday 15 minutes of confusion. Let us also address something that many disciplined people struggle with, and that is guilt during rest. Some people finish their important work, sit down to relax, and immediately begin attacking themselves for not doing more. They cannot enjoy the movie because they are mentally listing everything else they could be doing. They cannot rest properly because rest feels like laziness to them. This is not higher discipline. This is a pattern that leads to exhaustion. Once the meaningful work has been completed, rest without apology. Your mind and body need recovery to maintain useful effort over time. A tired brain does not become sharper simply because you refuse to stop pushing it. The goal is not to work every waking minute. The goal is to give your best attention to the work that matters and then recover properly so you can do it again tomorrow. There is an important distinction worth making here, and it is the difference between urgent tasks and important tasks. Urgent tasks demand attention because they have a deadline pressing against your face. The email that needs a reply by noon, the bill that is due tomorrow, the meeting that starts in an hour. Important tasks, on the other hand, improve your future even though nobody is chasing you about them. Studying, exercising, learning a new skill, building a personal project, planning your finances, working on your long-term career. The danger is that urgent tasks tend to consume the entire day, leaving no room for important work. You spend your morning replying to messages, handling small requests, solving other people's problems, putting out little fires. By the time the smoke clears, your energy is gone, and your own important goals have been pushed to another day, then another month. Protecting a focused block of time for important work before the day becomes crowded with urgency is one of the most valuable habits you can build. It does not mean ignoring genuine responsibilities. It means understanding that your own growth deserves a place on the schedule too. Not the leftover slot at the end of the day when you are running on fumes. A real, protected, intentional slot where your important work receives the attention it has been waiting for. One more practical suggestion. Give your breaks a timer, just as you give your work a timer. A break without a boundary can quietly expand from 10 minutes to 45 without you noticing. You sit down to rest for a moment, and suddenly half the afternoon has dissolved. Decide before the break begins how long it will last and what you will do during it. Then honor that boundary the same way you honor your work commitments. Discipline is not only about how you work, it is also about how you rest. Both deserve structure. Both deserve intention. Try this tomorrow. Before you begin your day, identify one meaningful result you want to complete before your first longer break. Write it down in specific terms. Start the task before opening unnecessary entertainment. Work until the defined checkpoint. Then take a planned break, a real one, away from the screen if possible. Let the break be a reward for completed effort, not a replacement for it. At the end of the day, notice what changed. Did you finish something that usually gets pushed aside? Did the break feel more satisfying? Did you spend less time negotiating with yourself? Did you return to work more easily? These are small observations, but they carry big answers. Over time, this pattern will change how your day feels. You will stop using comfort to hide from your responsibilities. You will start experiencing rest as something you genuinely earned. And you will discover something that most people never learn. A break is not sweeter because it is longer. A break is sweeter because it follows real effort. That changes everything. Chapter 7. Train yourself to keep your word. There is a person you make more promises to than anyone else on earth. Not your boss, not your partner, not your parents, not your closest friend. The person you make the most promises to is yourself. And if you are being honest, truly honest, that person is also the one whose promises you break most often. You say you will wake up early. You do not. You say you will start the project this week. You do not. You say you will stop spending money on things you do not need. You spend it anyway. You say you will exercise. You say you will study. You say you will eat better, sleep earlier, work harder, complain less, focus more. And for a moment, standing in the glow of that intention, you believe every word. But then the morning comes, heavy and ordinary, and the promise dissolves like fog in sunlight. Not because you are dishonest, but because somewhere along the way, you stopped treating your own word like it mattered. Here's why this is so important. Every promise you keep to yourself builds something invisible but powerful. Call it self-trust. Call it inner credibility. Call it the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your decisions actually mean something. And every promise you break chips away at it. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, like water wearing down stone, until one day you realize that when you say "I will," even you do not believe it anymore. That is a painful place to stand. But it is also a place you can walk away from, one kept promise at a time. The first step is surprisingly simple, and it is the opposite of what most people do when they decide to change. Most people make too many promises at once. They feel a surge of motivation, usually late at night or after watching something inspiring, and they write down a list of 12 new commitments. Wake up at 5, exercise for an hour, read 50 pages, meditate for 20 minutes, no sugar, no phone before noon, study a new language, save 30% of income, journal every evening, cold showers, early bedtime, perfect posture. The list is beautiful. It sits on the nightstand like a declaration of war against mediocrity. And it works for about 3 days. Then one habit slips, then another. Then the whole structure collapses, and the person is left feeling worse than before, because now they have not just failed at one thing. They have failed at 12 things simultaneously. This is not a discipline problem. It is an architecture problem. You tried to build a cathedral on the first day when you should have been laying a single brick. Start with one promise, just one. Choose something that connects to the person you're trying to become. If you want to be healthier, promise yourself a 20-minute walk 5 days a week. If you want to be more knowledgeable, promise 30 minutes of study after dinner. If you want to be more organized, promise 10 minutes of tidying your space each evening. If you want to be more financially responsible, promise to review your spending every Sunday for 15 minutes. Notice what makes these promises different from the usual vague declarations. They have three essential ingredients: a clear action, a specific time or situation, and a visible standard for completion. I will read more is a wish. I will read 15 pages after breakfast is a promise you can actually keep, measure, and track. That specificity is not a small detail. It is the entire difference between a commitment and a daydream. Write the promise down. Put it somewhere you will see it daily. Then create the simplest possible tracking system. A piece of paper on the wall, a row of checkboxes, a note on your phone. Each day mark whether you kept the promise. Do not write explanations. Do not create elaborate scoring methods. Just a simple mark. Yes or no. Kept or missed. After 2 weeks, look at the record. What you see will tell you more about your discipline than any motivational speech ever could. But here is something crucial. Do not make promises based on the version of your life that exists only in your most enthusiastic moments. Make promises based on the life you actually live, the life with traffic and fatigue and unexpected phone calls and evenings where you are too drained to think clearly. If your promise only works on perfect days, it is not a promise. It is a fantasy dressed up in disciplined clothing. This is why the minimum version matters so much. Every important promise should have a backup plan for difficult days. Your normal exercise session is 40 minutes. Your minimum is a 10-minute walk. Your normal study block is an hour. Your minimum is 15 minutes of focused review. Your normal cleaning routine takes 30 minutes. Your minimum is clearing one surface. The minimum is not a failure. The minimum is a lifeline. It keeps the commitment breathing on days when the full version is genuinely impossible. And it prevents the most dangerous moment in any habit-building journey, which is the first complete skip. Because here is what happens when you skip entirely. 1 missed day feels like a crack. 2 missed days feel like a pattern. 3 missed days feel like permission to stop. The minimum stops that chain before it starts. You did not do everything, but you did something. And that something tells your brain that this commitment still exists. It still matters. It is still part of who you are. Speaking of who you are, there is something worth understanding about the relationship between promises and identity. Every time you tell yourself you will do something and then do it, you are casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Every kept promise is a vote that says, I am someone who follows through. Every broken promise is a vote that says, my words do not carry weight. Neither single vote decides the election, but over time, the votes accumulate, and they form a picture. That picture becomes your self-image, and your self-image quietly influences every future decision you make. A person who sees themselves as reliable will make different choices than a person who sees themselves as unreliable, not because they have more willpower, but because their identity nudges them toward consistency. They have evidence. They have a record of kept promises, and that record creates momentum. Starting small is not thinking small. It is building the evidence base that your larger commitments will eventually stand on. There is another dimension to keeping your word that extends beyond your relationship with yourself. It reaches into every relationship you have. Think about the people in your life. The ones you trust the most are almost certainly the ones whose words match their actions. When they say they will call, they call. When they say they will be there, they show up. When they make a commitment, you can feel the weight behind it. You trust them not because they gave you a speech about reliability, but because their behavior over time demonstrated it. Now think about what happens when the pattern is reversed. Someone who constantly says they will do things and then does not. You stop relying on their words. You stop expecting follow-through. You might still care about them, but you quietly lower your expectations because experience has taught you that their promises are unreliable. This same process happens inside you. When you repeatedly tell yourself that you will change and then do not, a quiet form of skepticism takes root. You still make the promises, but part of you has already stopped believing. That internal skepticism is one of the greatest obstacles to discipline because it undermines the very foundation that effort stands on. Why try hard if I know I am going to quit anyway? The only way to reverse that skepticism is through evidence. Small, repeated, undeniable evidence that your word can be trusted. Let us also talk about an important distinction. There is a difference between a goal and a promise. A goal describes a result you want to achieve. Lose 20 pounds, save $10,000, get promoted, learn a language. These are outcomes, and many of them depend on factors you cannot fully control. A promise, on the other hand, describes an action you will take. Walk for 20 minutes every morning. Transfer a specific amount into savings each paycheck. Practice the skill for 30 minutes daily. Apply for one new opportunity each week. You can break a goal through circumstances beyond your control, but a promise rooted in action is almost always within your power to keep. That is why promises are more useful for building daily discipline than goals. Goals tell you where you want to go. Promises tell you what you will do today to move in that direction. Goals inspire. Promises deliver. Your promises should also include things you commit to stopping. Maybe you promise that your phone stays outside the bedroom at night. Maybe you promise to wait 24 hours before making any non-essential purchase. Maybe you promise not to check social media during meals. These boundaries are just as important as positive habits because they protect your time and attention from being quietly consumed by patterns that give very little back. Make the rules clear enough that you know immediately whether you kept them. I will use my phone less is impossible to measure. I will not look at my phone during the first hour after waking is something you can track with absolute certainty. Before making any new promise, pause and ask yourself 4 honest questions. Is this commitment necessary? Do I have realistic time and energy for it? What could prevent me from keeping it? What is the minimum version I can fall back on? These questions take less than a minute, but they prevent the kind of reckless overcommitting that leads to disappointment. It is better to make one solid promise and keep it for a month than to make 10 impressive promises and abandon all of them by next Tuesday. There is one final thought on this that I want you to carry with you. Learn to say no to commitments you cannot honor. This applies to promises you make to yourself and promises others ask of you. When someone asks you to take on a responsibility and you know your plate is already full, the disciplined response is not to say yes and hope for the best. The disciplined response is to say, I cannot commit to that right now, but I can do this instead. Or simply, I cannot promise that today. That kind of honesty might feel uncomfortable in the moment, but it protects something far more valuable than temporary approval. It protects your credibility with others and with yourself. Start tonight. Choose one promise. Make it specific. Give it a time. Write it down. Tomorrow, keep it. The next day, keep it again. Track it honestly. Adjust if the system fails. Return quickly after setbacks. Do not promise everything. Promise what you are genuinely prepared to do. Then let your actions speak louder than your intentions ever could. Day after day, the distance between what you say and what you do will shrink. And in that shrinking space, something remarkable will grow. A quiet, unshakable confidence that does not need applause, does not need validation, and does not need permission. It comes from the simplest, most powerful source there is. You said you would, and you did. Chapter 8. Handle bad days without losing discipline. Here is something that nobody puts on a motivational poster. Bad days are not interruptions to a disciplined life. They are part of it. They are built into the design. They are not proof that your system is broken or that you lack the strength to keep going. They are simply what happens when you are a human being living a real life with real responsibilities, real limitations, and a body that does not always cooperate with your plans. You will have mornings when your alarm goes off and your body feels like it is filled with sand. You will have afternoons when your focus disappears, no matter how hard you try to hold on to it. You will have evenings when the thing you plan to do sits in front of you and every cell in your body whispers, "Not today." These days are coming. They are not a possibility. They are a certainty. And the question is not whether they will arrive. The question is what you will do when they knock on your door. Most people handle bad days in one of two ways, and both are mistakes. The first mistake is total collapse. One thing goes wrong, and the entire day is declared a loss. You miss the morning workout and decide the whole week is ruined. You eat something outside your plan and throw the entire diet away. You lose focus during a study session and spend the rest of the afternoon doing nothing useful because, well, today's already wasted. This is what some people call all or nothing thinking, and it is one of the fastest ways to destroy a habit that took weeks to build. One crack in the wall does not mean the house has fallen. But if you stop maintaining the wall because of one crack, the house will eventually collapse on its own. The second mistake is the opposite. It is refusing to acknowledge the bad day at all. Grinding through exhaustion, ignoring the signals your body is sending, pushing harder when rest is what you genuinely need. Treating every moment of struggle as a weakness to be crushed. This approach might look impressive for a short time, but it leads somewhere predictable. Burnout, injury, resentment toward the very habits you're trying to build. Discipline that destroys your health is not discipline. It is punishment wearing a productive mask. The better path lives between these two extremes. And it starts with a concept so simple that most people overlook it entirely. Flexible structure. Before a bad day arrives, create 3 levels for your most important habits. Your full level is what you do on a strong day. Your reduced level is what you can manage when things are harder than usual. Your minimum level is the smallest meaningful action that keeps the habit alive. For exercise, your full version might be a 45-minute workout. Your reduced version might be 20 minutes of lighter movement. Your minimum might be a 10-minute walk around the block. For study, your full version might be an hour of concentrated focus. Your reduced version might be 30 minutes. Your minimum might be 10 minutes of review. For work, Your full version might be completing an entire section. Your reduced version might be finishing half. Your minimum might be organizing your materials and writing the first paragraph. The exact numbers belong to you. The principle is what matters. You are not abandoning the habit on a difficult day. You are adjusting its size to fit the reality of what is available. And that distinction, small as it may seem, is the difference between a routine that survives real life and a routine that shatters the first time conditions are imperfect. There is something psychologically powerful about completing even the minimum version on a bad day. It sends a message to your brain that says, this commitment does not disappear when things get uncomfortable. It bends, but it does not break. That message, over time, becomes part of your identity. You are not someone who quits when the day is hard. You are someone who adjusts and continues. That identity is worth more than any single perfect workout or flawless study session. Now let us talk about something that bad days tend to amplify. The way you speak to yourself when things go wrong. On a good day, you are your own coach. You encourage yourself. You set goals. You feel capable. But on a bad day, that same inner voice can turn into a prosecutor. You missed the session. You failed again. You have no discipline. You will never change. You always do this. These are not observations. They are attacks. And they do not solve a single problem. They only add a second problem on top of the first one. When something goes wrong, use facts instead of judgments. I missed my study session today as a fact. You can work with a fact. You can ask why it happened and what you can adjust. I have no discipline and I will never change is a story. And it is almost certainly not a true one. You would not speak to a friend that way after they had one rough day. Extend the same basic compassion to yourself. After you name the fact, decide on one repair action. Not a dramatic overhaul, not a punishment. Just one small step that moves things back in the right direction. If you missed a workout, do a 10-minute stretch before bed. If you overspent, review your budget for 5 minutes and plan tomorrow's spending. If you lost an entire afternoon to distraction, prepare your materials for the morning and set a clear starting time. The repair does not erase the bad day. It does not need to. It just stops the bad day from spreading into the next one. This leads to one of the most important skills in handling bad days, the speed of your return. The damage of a bad day is rarely the day itself. The damage is what happens afterward. Missing one workout is barely noticeable in the long arc of your fitness. Missing the next 6 because the first absence gave you permission to quit is a real problem. Overspending once is a stumble. Overspending for the next 3 weeks because you already broke the budget is a different story entirely. Your goal is not to prevent every bad day. That is impossible. Your goal is to shrink the recovery time. Come back at the next available opportunity. Do not wait for Monday. Do not wait for the first of the month. Do not wait for some imaginary fresh start that feels clean and perfect. If you missed the morning session and you have time in the evening, do the reduced version. If today is already gone, prepare everything for tomorrow and begin as planned. The faster you return, the less power the bad day has over your trajectory. Bad days can also be surprisingly useful if you are willing to study them instead of just suffering through them. After the day is over, ask yourself 3 short questions. What went wrong? What was within my control? What will I do differently next time? Keep the answers practical, not emotional essays about your shortcomings. Simple, honest observations. Maybe you stayed up too late and your morning was ruined by exhaustion. The adjustment is clear. Go to bed earlier. Maybe you kept your phone next to you during work and it pulled your attention away repeatedly. The adjustment is clear. Move the phone. Maybe you scheduled your hardest task for the afternoon when your energy is always lowest. The adjustment is clear. Move the task to the morning. These are not failures of character. They are design flaws in your system. And design flaws can be fixed without a single motivational speech. Just a small, intelligent adjustment and the willingness to try again. There is another pattern worth watching for. After a bad day, some people overcompensate. They feel guilty about what they missed, so they create an enormous plan for tomorrow. They will do twice as much. They will wake up earlier. They will make up for everything. Then tomorrow arrives, and because the plan was built on guilt rather than reality, they crash again. Now they have 2 bad days instead of 1, and the cycle continues. Do not punish tomorrow for today's problems. If today was difficult, the best thing you can do tonight is simple. Clean one small area. Prepare what you need for the morning. Set a realistic plan, not an ambitious revenge plan. Go to bed at a reasonable time. Give tomorrow a fair chance by not loading it with the weight of today's frustration. Your environment can help you recover faster than willpower alone. After a bad day, take 5 minutes to reset your physical space. Clear your desk. Put away the clutter. Set out the materials for your first morning task. Charge your phone in another room. Lay out your clothes. These small acts of preparation are not trivial. They are signals. They tell your brain that tomorrow is a new opportunity and the stage is already set. Let me also say something about comparing your bad days to someone else's highlights. This is a trap that social media has made almost impossible to avoid. You are scrolling through your phone on a day when everything fell apart, and there they are. Someone who woke up at 5, ran 10 kilometers, finished a project, cooked a beautiful meal, and still had time to smile for the camera. You do not know their full story. You do not know what they skipped, what they struggled with, what they hid behind the frame. You are comparing your worst chapter with their best photograph. That comparison produces nothing except unnecessary pain. Measure yourself against your own recent behavior. Ask whether you are responding to difficulty better than you did a month ago. That is the only comparison that leads somewhere useful. One more thing before we move forward. Bad days, handled well, can actually make your discipline stronger. That might sound contradictory, but think about it this way. Anyone can follow a routine when the sun is shining, the schedule is open, and everything feels easy. That requires very little inner strength. But adjusting your effort on a hard day, protecting the habit even in its smallest form, returning quickly after a stumble, speaking to yourself with facts instead of attacks, those are advanced skills. They require flexibility, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. Every time you navigate a bad day without abandoning your commitments, you develop something that good days can never teach you. So tonight, if today was hard, do not try to fix your entire life before midnight. Clean one surface. Prepare one thing for morning. Complete one small responsibility. Set a reasonable alarm. Let the day end. Tomorrow does not need to be a perfect correction. It just needs to be a return to something useful. get up. Follow the first action, adjust the workload to fit your actual energy. Complete something meaningful, even if it is smaller than usual. Continue from there. A disciplined person is not someone who never falls. A disciplined person is someone who has learned to fall without staying on the ground. They brush off the dust, look at the map, and take the next step. Not the perfect step, just the next one. And that is always enough. Chapter 9. Push yourself when nobody is watching. There is a version of you that only exists when other people are looking. That version sits up straighter when the boss walks by. That version studies harder the night before someone checks the work. That version exercises with more intensity when a friend is watching. That version cleans the apartment only when guests are expected. That version performs discipline like an actor on a stage, convincing and impressive under the lights. But the moment the curtain falls and the audience leaves, the performance ends too. And then there is another version, a quieter version, the one that exists at 11 o'clock at night when nobody will ever know whether you did the work or not. The one that stands in front of the refrigerator when no one is counting. The one that sits at the desk with an open browser and a closed door, free to choose anything without consequence. The one that could skip the workout, delay the task, break the promise, and never have to explain it to a single soul. That version, the private version, is the one that matters most, because the life you build is not shaped by the things you do when the world is watching. It is shaped by the thousands of small, invisible choices you make when you are completely alone with your own standards. This is not a comfortable idea. Most of us prefer to believe that our public performance is the real one, but deep down, you know the truth. You know which version shows up more often, and if there is a gap between who you are in front of others and who you are behind closed doors, that gap is where your real work needs to happen. Let us start with a question. Why does public effort feel easier than private effort? The answer is not complicated. Public effort comes with built-in rewards. When someone sees you working hard, you receive acknowledgement, approval, respect, sometimes even admiration. Your brain registers those rewards and associates effort with a pleasant social outcome. That association is powerful. It can make you run faster, study longer, and push harder, but only when the audience is present. Private effort has none of those external rewards. Nobody applauds when you study alone in your room. Nobody posts about the walk you took on a cold morning when you wanted to stay in bed. Nobody celebrates the budget you stuck to, or the phone you kept in another room during dinner. The work is real, but the reward is invisible. And invisible rewards require a different kind of motivation. They require internal standards. An internal standard is a rule you keep not because someone will check, but because you decided it matters. It might be completing your planned study session even when nobody will test you on it. It might be finishing the last set of exercises when your trainer is not there. It might be keeping your space clean when no visitor is expected for weeks. It might be saving money when nobody knows your financial goals. It might be telling the truth when a small lie would be easier and completely undetectable. These standards do not earn you public recognition. They earn you something quieter and far more durable. They earn you the kind of self-respect that does not depend on anyone else's opinion. Here is a practical way to begin building this. Choose one task each day that nobody else will inspect, evaluate, or even know about. Then complete it to the standard you would maintain if the most important person in your life were standing right behind you, not because they are watching, but because you are. Do not announce it. Do not post about it. Do not tell anyone what you did. Let the action exist entirely between you and the person you are becoming. This is a surprisingly difficult exercise for a generation trained to document everything, but it teaches you something essential. The work has value even when no one claps. The discipline matters even when no one notices. The habit counts even when no one is keeping score. You might discover something uncomfortable during this process. You might notice that without the possibility of recognition, your enthusiasm drops. That is not a sign that you are a fraud. It is a sign that your motivation has been leaning too heavily on external validation. And that lean, over time, creates a fragile kind of discipline that only works when conditions are favorable. Recognizing this is not a defeat. It is the beginning of building something sturdier. There is a hidden danger in relying on external accountability for everything. It works beautifully as a tool. Study groups, workout partners, coaches, public commitments, these can all enhance your consistency. But if they become the only reason you show up, you have built your discipline on borrowed structure. The moment the structure disappears, the group disbands, the partner moves away, the coach stops checking, the discipline evaporates with it. External accountability should be a supplement to your internal standards, not a replacement for them. Let me mention something that often goes unspoken. There is a quiet danger on the opposite end of the spectrum, too. Some people push themselves relentlessly in private, not out of healthy discipline, but out of a need to prove their worth to themselves through suffering. They work past exhaustion. They deny themselves rest. They treat every moment of relaxation as a failure. That is not discipline either. That is self-punishment, wearing a discipline mask. Pushing yourself when nobody is watching means doing the useful work you committed to doing. It does not mean ignoring every human need. Rest is part of private discipline. Sleep is part of private discipline. Knowing when enough work has been done is part of private discipline. A strong private standard includes the ability to close the laptop at a reasonable hour, eat a proper meal, and go to bed without guilt. You are building sustainable behavior, not performing endurance tests for an audience of one. Now let us talk about honesty, because private discipline depends on it entirely. When nobody is checking your record, the temptation to fudge the numbers becomes very real. You studied for 12 minutes, but told yourself it was 30. You walked for 5 minutes and called it a workout. You glanced at the textbook and marked the study session as complete. These small, dishonest adjustments feel harmless, but they erode the very thing you are trying to build. You cannot develop self-trust on a foundation of inaccurate self-reporting. Track what you actually did, not what you wish you had done. If you planned an hour and only managed 20 minutes, write 20 minutes. If the workout was half-hearted, record it honestly. This might sting, but accurate information is always more useful than comfortable fiction. You cannot fix a routine you are lying to yourself about. Honest tracking gives you the real picture, and the real picture, even when it is unflattering, is the only starting point for genuine improvement. Here is a 7-day challenge worth trying. Choose one meaningful behavior. Keep it simple and specific. Complete it at roughly the same time each day. Tell no one. Track the result privately and honestly. Do not add extra tasks because you are feeling ambitious on day 2. The goal is to prove to yourself that you can maintain a standard without any external pressure for an entire week. During those 7 days, pay attention to the moments when you want to skip. Write down the reason. Maybe you are tired. Maybe the task feels pointless without anyone to show it to. Maybe you think one missed day will not matter. Then ask yourself whether the reason is valid or simply uncomfortable. Most of the time, you will find that the reason is not a genuine limitation. It is just resistance dressed in a reasonable outfit. After the 7 days, look at your record. What you see there is a small but honest portrait of your private discipline. It might be perfect. It might have gaps. Either way, it gives you something no motivational speech can provide. Truth. And truth, even when it reveals weakness, is always the first step towards strength. There is something else worth understanding about private effort. It compounds in ways that public effort often cannot. Public performances tend to be isolated events. You show up, you perform, you receive feedback, and the moment ends. Private effort accumulates. The pages you study alone become knowledge that shows up in conversations, decisions, and opportunities months later. The money you save quietly becomes a safety net you did not have before. The workouts nobody saw become the strength and energy you carry through your days. The skill you practiced in your room becomes the competence that opens unexpected doors. Nobody saw the preparation. Everyone sees the result. And the beautiful irony is that the result would not exist without the invisible hours that preceded it. There will be stretches of time when nobody notices your effort. Weeks, maybe months, where your progress is invisible to the outside world. During those stretches, your only source of encouragement is the knowledge that you are doing what you said you would do. That can feel lonely. It can feel thankless. But it is also one of the purest forms of personal power you will ever experience. You are not performing for approval. You are building something real, stone by stone, in the quiet hours when the world is not paying attention. Do not let the absence of an audience become a reason to lower your standards. Your goals still have value when nobody is watching. Your health still matters when nobody comments on it. Your skills still grow when nobody measures them. Your promises still count when nobody checks on them. The importance of the work does not decrease just because the spotlight has moved somewhere else. Keep one meaningful standard that belongs entirely to you. Follow it without broadcasting it. Track what you actually do with ruthless honesty. Adjust the system when it breaks down. Rest when your body needs it. Return when the break is over. Let your private behavior become the foundation that everything public eventually stands on. The person you become is not defined by the version of you that shows up for the performance. It is defined by the version that shows up on an ordinary evening, behind a closed door, when nobody would ever know the difference. Make sure that version is someone you are proud of. Chapter 10. Build a life you can respect. There is a question that most people avoid asking themselves, not because the question is complicated, but because the answer might be uncomfortable. The question is simple. If you could watch an honest recording of how you spent your last 7 days, every hour, every decision, every moment of effort, and every moment of avoidance, would you respect the person you saw? Not a perfect person, not a flawless person, just someone whose actions tell a story you can stand behind. That is what this final chapter is about. Not perfection, not productivity, not grinding yourself into dust in the name of self-improvement. It is about building a life where the way you spend your days actually reflects what you say matters to you. Because here is a truth that is easy to ignore, but impossible to escape. Your life is not defined by what you believe in. It is defined by what you repeatedly do. You may believe that health matters, but your schedule tells the real story. You may believe that learning is important, but your evenings reveal the truth. You may believe that financial stability deserves attention, but your spending record holds the honest answer. You may believe that relationships are precious, but the quality of your presence during conversations shows what you actually prioritize. This is not meant to make you feel guilty. It is meant to wake you up. Because the gap between what you value and what you practice is not a permanent condition. It is a distance that can be closed, one small, honest adjustment at a time. Start by looking at one ordinary day with clear eyes. Not the best day, not the worst, just a regular Tuesday. Write down how your time actually went, from waking to sleeping. Include everything: work, meals, phone time, entertainment, exercise, study, conversations, commuting, scrolling, resting. Do not edit, do not exaggerate, just record the facts. Then place that record next to a short list of the things you say matter most to you: health, family, career growth, financial responsibility, learning, personal development. Whatever your list contains, hold it beside the record of your day and look at both honestly. If they match, you are already living a life you can respect. Protect it. If they do not match, you have just found the most valuable piece of information available to you, because now you know exactly where the work needs to happen. Not everywhere, not all at once, just in the specific places where your behavior has drifted away from your values. Choose one area, the one where closing the gap would make the biggest difference. Then define one behavior, one daily action that brings your schedule closer to your stated priority. If health matters, but movement is missing, add a 20-minute walk. If learning matters, but study has disappeared, protect 30 minutes each evening. If financial stability matters, but spending is untracked, review your expenses for 10 minutes every Sunday. One behavior, one adjustment. That is where respect begins to rebuild. Your standards are the invisible architecture of your daily life. They determine what you do when nobody gives instructions. They guide the moments between obligations, the choices that feel too small to matter but accumulate into the shape of your entire existence. Arriving on time, keeping your space in order, finishing what you start, speaking honestly, honoring commitments, managing money with awareness, taking care of your body. These are not glamorous achievements. They are the ordinary bricks that extraordinary lives are built from. You also need to accept something that the culture of constant improvement sometimes forgets to mention. A life you respect includes rest. It includes laughter. It includes meals with people you love and evenings where you do absolutely nothing productive. Discipline is not the art of filling every hour with effort. It is the art of placing effort and rest in their proper positions so that neither one destroys the other. Work when work is needed. Rest when rest is earned. Learn when knowledge is missing. Save when spending would create future pressure. Speak honestly when silence would breed confusion. Set boundaries when demands begin to erode your responsibilities. Take care of your body because it carries you through every single day. These are not radical instructions. They are the quiet commitments that separate a life lived with intention from a life lived on autopilot. Review your week regularly, not with harsh judgment, with honest curiosity. What worked? What slipped? What needs a small adjustment? Study your habits the way a gardener studies a garden. Pull the weeds gently. Water what is growing. Plant what is missing. Give it time. You have spent this entire journey learning to face hard tasks, keep promises, push through resistance, work without applause, and recover from difficult days. Those were not separate lessons. They were pieces of the same puzzle. And the picture they form, when you step back far enough to see it, is this. You are becoming someone who takes responsibility for how they live. Not someone who waits for the perfect moment. Not someone who needs permission to begin. Not someone whose standards rise and fall with their mood. But someone who decides what matters, builds a system to support it, adjusts when things break, and keeps going through ordinary days with quiet, steady purpose. That is a life you can respect, not because every day went perfectly, but because you showed up honestly, made the next right choice, and kept building, even when nobody was watching. You have reached the end of this journey, but the real work starts the moment the audio stops. Tomorrow, there will be another hard task, another moment of resistance, another temptation to choose comfort over purpose. That moment is not your enemy. It is your invitation. Choose one hard thing. Do it before it feels easy. Keep the promise you made to yourself. Work without waiting for applause. Handle the bad day without losing your direction, then do it all again the next morning. You do not need to change your entire life tonight. You just need to take one honest step, and then another, and then another. Your future is not built by the plans you make. It is built by the choices you repeat. Make them count. Starting now.